All right, welcome back, everybody, to the SilmFilm script discussion for Season 3, Episode 3 as well. Yep, I should totally be getting ready. It's great to be back. It's only been a week this time, not many weeks like it was last time. But we've got our work cut out for us tonight. So
yeah, this will be a challenging episode to put together.
Yeah, only a lot. So, as typical, why don't we do a rundown of things that we need to have happen in this episode?
Okay. We need to have the frame, obviously.
Yes.
We need to have Uinen's storm that'll wreck some of the ships that the Feanorians stole. We need to have the Valar's reaction to the Kinslaying, because we didn't see that at all last episode. And we have been requested to put in a scene on the shore between the Feanorians and the coast of Fingolfin, where Fingolfin kind of repudiates his own actions in the Kinslaying by breaking his sword. He's regretting having killed some elves. So that was supposed to be in there. So that's a lot of things that are not Meanwhile in Beleriand.
Yeah, they are things.
Yeah.
They are definitely things, yes.
Yeah. So meanwhile, in Beleriand, for the Angband storyline, we have Sauron is sent into Beleriand, and he's on a mission to find Ungoliant, who is gone. So instead, he and Thringwithil find Shelob. Is that this episode or fourth?
I think that they're discussing having that happen in the 4th episode.
Yeah, so that's not happening yet, but he is out of Angband.
Yes.
Who is an Angband that we do need to see is Bulldog, who is going to be the new captain of the orcs for the Orc Project, and this is the episode where the orcs should be revealed as orcs. So up to this point, they've been fallen elves or experimental test subjects or whatever, but as of this point, they're orcs now. And the reason for that change is Morgoth's influence, intervention, putting his own hatred and anger into them. So they're twisted more than they were before. So we need to see all that.
Okay.
The main part of the episode is supposed to be Meanwhile in Beleriand. So none of that is in Beleriand. In Beleriand, we have the Sindar living in peace, because Angband's been mostly leaving them alone for the last 1,000 years. They have 2 main settlements. Círdan is on the shore, and they have built a town, and they build ships, and that's what they are. Thingol and Melian are in the forests of Doriath, and they are pretty much wandering companies who live a fairly spread out lifestyle and have lots of time for festivals and feasts and things like that, and arts. So we have Luthien the dancer and Daeron the minstrel, but they're aware of Morgoth's return because Thangorodrim was raised, and that was something that is seen from a distance, because it's like a huge volcanic eruption, sort of. So there's some disquiet there, or the elves of Thingol's court are maybe concerned about what's happening, and Melian would have some idea, some vague idea, she doesn't know exactly, but she might recognize Morgoth's return. So we then are supposed to end all of this with Beleg coming upon a group of creatures that he's never seen before, and it turns out to be some orcs who are setting fire to trees and eating raw meat and behaving in a disturbing manner. And that's it. That's what's supposed to happen. I think.
So,
I'm pretty sure. Did I forget something? I feel like I probably forgot something.
No, I'm looking at the notes here also. I mean, some of the issues that we're facing here is that we essentially have 2, maybe 3 actual episodes here. Now you can do what we've done before, which is A plot, B plot, C plot, and so on, and that's not a problem. Where you run into an issue with that is that in order to do that, you still have to follow act structure. You still have to.
Yeah.
Right. You intercut between these different things, which we're not allowed to do.
Right. We have definitely been requested that the Valinor stuff happened in the beginning of the episode and the Beleriand stuff happened after that.
Right.
There's a few possible ways to get around that a little bit. Not really, but just a little bit. One is the teaser at the beginning of the episode can be in Beleriand because teasers aren't really connected to the rest of the episode. Don't have to be necessarily. So if we wanted to have the very first shot be Círdan on the shores of Beleriand looking out the sea, we can do that and have a scene there. No one's going to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a completely out of context scene, but if we wanted to, we could go there in the teaser. The other thing we can do is we could cut the 2 parts, separate the 2 parts of the episode with the frame.
Well, that I think was kind of the frame was probably going to be the only thing that we were going to be able to do this with at all. The Círdan opening up with the Círdan scene doesn't fix our problem because
it doesn't.
Círdan is not one of the characters that we're going to be meeting later on. The only thing I can think of that solves this is to keep the focus on the frame in this episode as where the main action is happening. However, there's a lot of stuff that's taking place here. And we're going to have to manufacture a lot of frame story while there's all these other events that they want to be showing in the main story.
Yeah. So kind of intentionally, we ended the Kinslaying episode without a frame.
Right.
So we did not return to the frame there.
Yeah.
So since we've usually returned to the frame at the end of the episode, possibly a little bit before the end, but there's almost always been a frame in the 4th act, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
most of the time. There's been a few episodes that we've done that, yeah.
But we've almost always had it be the end or almost the end of the episode be the frame. So by having no frame at all in the entire second half, I mean, there's only one frame scene and it's the beginning of episode 2. So that allows us to kind of treat the beginning of episode 3 as episode 2 continued, and then end it with the frame, and then begin episode 3 10 minutes into the episode.
That almost saves it. That almost saves it to do it like as if like a 2-parter, like have episode 2 be part 1 and have episode 2 be part 2. The problem is that only makes it worse because that means that you're introducing the Beleriand plot line as your act 4 of this 2-part episode, which
I know
is still an issue.
There's a few issues that we can't get around because we have to switch from Valinor to Beleriand and return to characters we haven't seen in half a season. Like that needs to happen.
Yeah, I understand.
We can do it as soon as possible in the episode, but the only way to get them into Act 1 is if we use the teaser for it. So there's The other solution is to take the scenes that they want that are in the Valinor storyline and put them in different episodes. So the reaction of the Valar to the kinslaying could be interposed with the actual kinslaying, as long as we don't need much dialogue. Mm-hmm. So the Valar looking shocked and sad could be intercut with the actual kinslaying as it's happening in Act 2. We wouldn't get their judgment or whatever, but maybe we don't really need them to say they don't approve. Like, maybe it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, well, obviously they don't approve. Yeah, we can.
Right.
Well, the
reason we needed it here was because they're supposed to say no one's allowed to interfere, and then Uinen does anyway.
Yeah.
So
I know.
So that's the line we needed to get in, and it made sense to put it in this episode, so it went with Uinen's action. But if we needed to, we could shove it into episode 2. So that would get the Valar scene out, and Uinen would be the only part. We could then take the final piece, which is the Feanor-Fingolfin interaction, and stick that in episode 5 as a meanwhile back in Valinor brief interlude in the middle of our Balerion storyline. Not necessarily the best way to handle it, but maybe better than taking up the first 20 minutes of this episode with Valinor.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do that, we could trim it down to the only thing that needs to happen is Uinen's storm.
Well,
which would leave us the opportunity to still be in Act 1 when we got to Balerion and pick up with everything else.
I wonder if we wouldn't be better off starting off with the Angband stuff. So that...
Yeah. Because that will tie. Yeah, because we will see that later. We will see the orcs at the end of the very end of the episode will be the introduction of the orcs to the elves.
Yeah.
So if the very beginning of the episode is the introduction of the orcs to the audience, then that bookends it.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting if we did the Angband stuff as a teaser, and then we did that's Aragorn's dream, and he wakes up from it,
and then go into the frame,
for a bit, right?
Okay.
So what I'm suggesting is, instead of we show the events that are in this episode more through the lens of the frame than we have been typically.
Okay. Would you be comfortable with doing a teaser for the Angband with the orcs? Act 1 begins with Uinen's storm. Then we go to the frame, and Aragorn is out in the wilds in a storm.
I thought of that. I thought about that as well.
Yeah. Because then we introduce the frame right as we're ending the Valinor stuff, so it does cut it.
Or we do it the other way around. We put the frame first.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to tie Uinen's storm to the kinslaying.
I get that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking that has to happen in
what piece?
In the Valar scene that leads up to the storm is the issue.
Yeah. And that's why, I'm not necessarily comfortable cutting that out, but
honestly, the easiest solution is we cut Uinen's storm entirely.
We did build up to it, so I would rather leave out the Valar here, as long as we show them being sad during the kinslaying. Leave out the Valar here and merely have Ase try to restrain her and say something like, we've been forbidden to intervene. That's all it takes, is one line from one character to tell her no, and she does it anyway. Yeah. And if it's Ase trying to restrain her, when we know that she's usually the one who calms down Ase, it'll still work.
Yeah. the other, well,
I'm not saying it'll work well. I'm just.
I need to start when I think of things ahead of time and see the problems that are going to be created, like in a big picture structural sort of way. I need to
work out an answer that's.
I need to work out why. I need to work out what the consequences of not doing big picture structure well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's.
Okay.
Now that it's my responsibility to pass on stuff from the message board, I do feel like anytime we don't convey our ideas, I've dropped the ball. Like, I tried to tell them, guys.
No, I feel like anytime. So, like, basically, this is my fault for not articulating the reasons why plot structure over the course of the arc of the season is important.
Yeah. No, I definitely recognize that a well-written TV show has much better season planning than we do, even though we do plan the seasons in the beginning, simply because they know where all the arcs are going, and we just kind of talk about having some themes and characters and like what we want to happen. So we don't necessarily have super intentional developing arcs across the season. Like we've tried a few times and in a few ways, but obviously a real TV show, they plan all of this stuff out, and they are used to recognizing the structure and what works and what doesn't.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
For next off season, we should plan out act structure of season 4 and have that ready to go.
Yep. Because the thing is, if we do the work for them, they might go along with it if it looks good. I mean, right?
Yes.
Why wouldn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. And for season 4, it's going to matter because there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in there.
There's a yeah. So anyway, so this episode, this hodgepodge mess of an episode.
Right. So I think before we go anywhere with how we put it together, we do need to have a theme. And I'm not sure I know what that is, other than the vague end of piece kind of theme. Like, things were good, now they're not.
Let me take a look at what happens next in the frame. Because what we have for
this is where Elladan and Elrohir meet up with Aragorn in the wild, and he refuses to go back to Rivendell with them and continues on into the web.
That was episode 2.
No, episode 2 they didn't meet up yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes.
Now we could go back and change that. I mean, let's see where we need to go with the frame in this one, and then we can retroactively make the episode 2 frame fit. The way we left it off was the episode 2 frame was only a single scene.
Right.
Well, a single segment, and it was he's discovered to be missing in Rivendell, and Elrond sends his sons to go look for him.
Right.
Then we have Aragorn in the wilds, and then we have the twins discover like his trail or something, so we know that they've found him, but we don't see them meet yet.
Okay.
So that's what we need to do, is start with the meeting here.
All right. What's in the latest iteration of this is that they encounter orcs in this episode.
And so it was meant to parallel the introduction of the orcs.
Right, yeah. Which is why that's kind of should be the focus of the episode. But which would mean that we can make Beleg the protagonist of the episode, but we can't do that. So that should have been my question. I should have been, okay, well, who do you recommend as the main protagonist of this episode then?
Well, let's make it Estelle.
Well, it has to be now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one who's going to be there throughout the whole thing.
All right. So we essentially have to create that story whole cloth if this is going to work.
Okay.
So, however, it's going to be 20 minutes in about 30 seconds. So why don't we take a break real quick?
Sure.
If you're watching this live on YouTube, which I don't think anybody is at the moment, but if you are, hang on, we'll be right back. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, definitely like and share the videos. If you like and want to share them. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. Check out the links below so that you can get all the information on what the SilmFilm project is, what it's doing, the organization that's creating it, Signum University and Mythgard Academy Institute thing, are all about. Check it out down below. It's awesome. See you in a little bit.